When last we left our heroes, we played D&D last week. Those of you who've been following the campaign diaries know that the players fought a whole bunch of trolls last time. They've gone into a troll warren. They're going after these trolls for three reasons. First, they want experience points. Second, they want treasure. But mostly it's because they don't want these trolls behind them when they assault the city of the glass pool. There are dozens of trolls down here. There are two different tribes. And the first battle with the troll 2 weeks ago wasn't that much fun, I thought. I thought it was boring and sloggy because really all I was doing on my side of the DM screen was keeping track of these huge bags of hit points. But I made a video saying that it was boring and not that much fun, and several of my players watched that video and then came up to me and said, "Whoa, Matt, I had a great time." Now, two of the players, the spellcaster players, were kind of bored because they were on regeneration duty. They were just basically using cantrips every round because that kept the troll regeneration shut down, so they didn't really feel like there was much for them to do. Or better to say, they felt like they were doing the optimal thing every round. It just wasn't very exciting. But I made it a point to try to make the trolls more fun and interesting for me to run, and ideally more engaging for the heroes to battle, and I think I achieved that. When we began the evening, Graves' Hunger of Hadar was still up, and it blocks line of sight. The players knew that the trolls were retreating, and I asked them if they wanted to rest or if they wanted to keep fighting, and they kind of picked a third option. They decided they wanted to heal up, and I said, okay, that's fine. If you guys want to cast some spells here, we don't have to continue going in initiative order. The trolls are retreating. Once they were done healing up, they decided, okay, let's continue after these trolls. It's important to note that Anna wasn't around this week, which meant they were one player down. They didn't have Alejandro de Modesto, and my tradition is that if you're not around this week, it's up to you to find someone to run your character. And of course, someone can just volunteer to, but in this instance, no one did. None of the players at Turtle Rock Studios have ever volunteered to run someone else's character, and I think that's mostly because they're all brand new at playing D&D, and just running their character is a big deal. And maybe 5th edition characters are more complex than the 1st or 2nd edition characters that I was used to when we started this tradition. But my friends and I would often run each other's characters just because otherwise you would miss out on the XP or we would be more likely to die. In retrospect, several of the players commented that they probably should have volunteered to run Anna's character because they could tell I had not adjusted. I didn't do anything to the trolls to try to balance them for Anna's absence. Look, I was like, the trolls are the trolls, and you guys had the opportunity to retreat. They heal up, they're ready for battle, they drop the Hunger of Hadar, and the trolls are gone. They were a little surprised by that, but I thought, well, what did you think the trolls were going to do? I told you the trolls were retreating. But I think the players didn't understand how vast this troll warren is and how cavernous it was. They assumed that retreating just meant they'd be a few squares behind the Hunger of Hadar, but in fact, they had gone farther into the troll warren. The players explore into the troll warren and they find this large cavern with a pool at the back of it. There don't appear to be any other ways out, and there are 6 trolls in here. There are 3 regular trolls, there are 2 troll mutants, which are these larger trolls. They have more hit points, and they also have 3 arms. With 3 arms, they can wield 2 great clubs. I'm not sure how the math on this works out. With 3 arms, they can wield 2 great clubs and get 3 attacks with them. A normal troll has 2 arms and 1 great club and 2 attacks. I should say the trolls I've been running, I actually have no idea how real trolls in the real monster manual work because I've monkeyed with mine so much. And in the back, there's a Troll Shaman. She's kind of the queen of this tribe of trolls. Having found where the trolls retreated to and having essentially cornered them in the back of their cavern, it's initiative. Lars's druid, Salar Bearmantle, wins initiative and he transforms into an Allosaurus. He got the idea because Sigurd, his earlier character, fought an Allosaurus when he was like 3rd level. So now that Lars is playing a druid, he said, hey, are there dinosaurs in this world? We fought one before, so if it's legal for a druid wild shape, does that mean I can be one? And I was like, sure, you know, Salar Bearmantle's been around. He's 5th level now. He's probably seen a dinosaur or 2. There actually is a place in my setting that's just right on the edge of the map I give the players called the Big Island of Ix in the middle of the Bale Sea, which is kind of this Aztec island with giant dinosaurs all over the place. Salar Bearmantle turns into an Allosaurus and charges into the trolls. And if you don't know what an Allosaurus is, it's basically a smaller T-Rex. Now, what Lars didn't know was that he won initiative, which was fantastic, but the trolls went right after him. So he charges into battle, he fails to knock any of them over with his charge, and then he's alone, surrounded by a bunch of trolls, and they just look at him and go, poof, 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 and annihilate him. The Allosaurus goes down and reverts back into being an elf. On the shaman's turn, she casts Evard's Black Tentacles, which Phil made a point of saying it was a pretty high level spell. It's a 4th level spell. And I'm not sure that the Shield of Gravesford has fought that many enemy spellcasters. The Revenant Vow fought lots of enemy spellcasters, and so they're used to the fact that enemy spellcasters are often much higher level than PC spellcasters. But just to give you some context and to make the campaign diary worthwhile, when I built this Troll Shaman, I didn't worry at all about what level she was. was, or about what level spells she could cast. I just looked at all the spells there were and picked the ones I thought were neat. So for instance, if you look in the monster manual, if something can cast spells, it will tell you which first level spells it has memorized, which second level spells, etc., and what level spellcaster it is. And I didn't really worry about any of that. I thought this shaman has a life expectancy of about 4 rounds. So I made sure she had one cantrip she could use in case the battle went longer and she ran out of spells. But otherwise, I didn't bother with first or second level spells. She wasn't going to cast any of those. I also don't worry about what class a shaman is. A shaman is not a wizard or a sorcerer or a warlock. It's its own thing. So maybe this shaman can cast some warlock spells and some wizard spells and some druid spells. That makes sense to me. This shaman had Evard's Black Tentacles memorized, Blight, which is also a high level spell, Giant Insect, and Counterspell. That was 4 pretty useful spells and she used all of them. One of the players complained and said, that's an awful lot of high level spells. What level is this shaman? And after the game, I went and looked up, what level shaman would you have to be able to cast all these spells? And she would only have to be 9th level. And these players have already fought like 11th level spellcasters. Obviously a 9th level spellcaster can cast lots of spells and has lots of spells memorized, but what's the point of doing all that work before the game when really, what are the odds that they're going to live even to cast half of them? So I picked a handful of spells that I thought would be super useful, and in this instance, I was right. I should point out this is probably the first time I've done that. Up until now, when I was running Lareth the Beautiful or Caloril the Vile, I made sure I knew all the spells they had memorized, but I found that to be a lot of work and bad bang for buck. And most of it didn't pay off. So this time when I was making the Troll Shaman, I focused on the things that would be useful in battle and plausible. She begins by casting Evard's Black Tentacles. The cool thing about this is that Keck has a ring of free action, so even though he's caught right in the middle of it, he can ignore the difficult terrain, and when one of the tentacles from Evard's Black Tentacles reaches out and grabs him, he is caught and does take the damage, but then he just slips away. There were several instances in the battle actually where Keck's Ring of Free Action proved very useful. A Ring of Free Action is one of those items that I think it's a high level item. All rings are high level items, but I didn't mind awarding it at lower level because all it does is it provides whoever's wearing it a couple of get out of jail free cards. And it's not like the entire party has Rings of Free Action, right? So an area effect thing that affects terrain, that slows the characters down, there's this one character in the party who will be able to ignore it, but everyone else is going to be affected by it. So Keck has the Ring of Free Action, which means he's able to get out of Evard's Black Tentacles, and on Sir Lanavar's turn, he casts Misty Step. And that was a very interesting tactical moment because Salar Bearmantle, the Allosaurus, is on the other side of the Evard's Black Tentacles with the trolls. Meanwhile, all the other characters are either in the Evard's Black Tentacles or on the other side of it opposite the trolls. Right when Keck went, he retreated backwards. So now what does Sir Lanavar do? Well, Sir Lanavar decided, you know what, I'm going to retreat because this seems pretty hairy. And explicitly, Lars told him, don't worry about me, I'm fine. Even though at that point, he looked like he was an unconscious elf, Lars knew I can just turn back into an Allosaurus on my turn and I will be able to get back to you guys. I've got 60 feet of movement. That was admittedly a little metagamey. There's technically no way that Sir Lanavar could have known that because Salar Bearmantle was unconscious. But it only added about 30 seconds to Sir Lanavar's Gertz's deliberation, and so I didn't mind. I really only mind metagaming when it bogs everything down. Otherwise, planning and scheming is part of the fun of playing the game. So Evard's Black Tentacles, super useful. The 2 3-armed mutant trolls walk up to the front of the Evard's Black Tentacles and begin attacking Nicodemus. And they're getting these 3 Great Club attacks, and the Great Clubs I think are doing 3d6 damage. I basically stole the Great Club from a Cyclops, and then I tuned it down a little bit because that was crazy. So you get an idea of how I do bad guys. I steal abilities from other monsters, and then I tweak them a little bit to make them more level appropriate. You know, if they were only getting 1 attack with the Great Club, then 3d8's no big deal, but they were getting 3 attacks per round with these Great Clubs. And at that rate, 3d8 each attack, that's no bueno. Now, mind you, these are frontline fighters, right? So I knew they were going to be fighting Nicodemus and Keck and Sir Lanavar. These are 3 very heavily armed characters. Their armor classes are like 19, 20, 21, sometimes 22. If Nicodemus, who's a Eldritch Knight, uses shield, his armor class can get up to like 25 or 27 or something stupid. I look forward to somebody in the comments saying that's impossible, and I'll break it down. They'll be like, oh, okay. Now it's the player's turn, and they know that the Troll Shaman has to concentrate in order to keep the Evard's Black Tentacles up, so they try to break her concentration. Graves casts Eldritch Bolt, it doesn't work, and then Tom's new character, Dorinka, the wizard, casts Melf's Acid Arrow, and the Melf's Acid Arrow hits the Troll Shaman right in the face and does break her concentration, so the Evard's Black Tentacles goes down, and Nicodemus, played by EJ, is like, oh, thank God, because it was really cramping his style. Now the players have a little bit more mobility, but so do the trolls. The trolls go, the Troll Shaman casts Giant Insect, summoning 2 giant scorpions. One of the giant scorpions attacks Sir Lanavar and grapples him and grabs him in his claw. This is important, stay tuned. Graves tries to cast Hunger of Hadar, but he's not in position, and I was like, uh-oh, and I'm looking at the battlefield, and he could tell I was looking at the battlefield, and I was counting the number of spaces between him and the Troll Shaman, because I and you know what he did not, and that was the Troll Shaman had Counterspell memorized. These players have never seen Counterspell. They don't know what it does. They don't even know it exists. Graves goes to cast Hunger of Hadar. He indicates where it's going to be, and I count the distance. Hunger of Hadar's range is like 160 feet, and Counterspells is only, I think, 30 or 60 feet, so the Troll Shaman had to be a lot closer to Graves, and she wasn't in range, and I was like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to use my Counterspell. But then Phil said, oh, actually, hang on a second, I can't cast Hunger of Hadar yet, because I've used all my spell slots. I have to use an action for my Rod of the Pact Lord, or whatever it's called, in order to gain one spell slot back. So that's what he did in his round, and I was like, oh great, that gave me a round to get the Troll Shaman into range to counterspell. And Phil saw me count the squares between him and the Shaman. He knew the Shaman could do something, but he didn't know what. Nicodemus attacks, does a lot of damage to one of the Troll mutants. Salar Bearmantle gets up and turns back into an Allosaurus, and then charges back toward where his buddies are, so he's no longer behind enemy lines. Lars wasn't super happy with the way the Allosaurus behaved, and looking at the Allosaurus' stats, I was like, yeah, these are kind of weak sauce, and I know that the reason they do this, the reason Wizards of the Coast does this, is for game balance, but as you know, I'm not super interested in game balance. I want Salar Bearmantle to feel cool to play. So if everyone else turns into an Allosaurus that can either bite or claw and that's it, I want Salar Bearmantle's Allosaurus to have multi-attack and go claw, claw, bite. But it's going to take a little while for that to happen. It's one of those things where I feel like if he turns into an Allosaurus several times over the course of a couple of sessions, then that becomes his signature creature and he gets better at being an Allosaurus. I explained that to him and he thought that was super cool and he's looking forward to that. He also was worried because when he tries to use his spells, some of his spells, like Thorn Whip, he has to hit with, and he didn't understand how hitting with a spell worked, and so the whole night he was only adding +4 from his wisdom, and then afterwards when I said, what's going on with your character? Why are you missing all the time? He showed me what was going on and I said, you're not adding your proficiency bonus, which at 5th level is +3. And the difference for him between +4 and +7 is huge. So that's a little bookkeeping we did. Salar Bearmantle is now an Allosaurus and he's with the rest of the party and he's attacking the Troll mutants. Graves has used the Rod of the Pact Keeper or whatever it's called, I can't remember, in order to regenerate one spell slot. He's ready to cast Hunger of Hadar, and then the Troll Shaman moves past all her allies and is now the closest troll to the heroes. This is dangerous. It means that she's now within range of folks like Keck and Sir Lanavar and Nicodemus. Some of these guys do a lot of damage. When I say some of these guys, really I mean Nicodemus. Because remember, the Count of Rend is wielding Wound, the great black iron two-handed axe of Bonebreaker Doracor. And because it is an orc weapon and he is a half-orc, he can wield it one-handed, even though it's a two-handed weapon, which is what allows him to use the Shield of Andrum, which is a +2 shield, which is one of the reasons when he casts Shield that his armor class goes through the roof, but it only lasts one round. The Troll Shaman has moved past her bodyguards into the front rank so she can be close enough to Graves to cast Counterspell. I pointed out to Phil, I said, she acts like you, Graves, are the shaman for this party, so she's keeping an eye on you through the whole battle. I wanted Phil not to be incredibly surprised when Counterspell went off. This is risky because it means she's now close to characters like Sir Lanavar and Keck and the Count of Rend, all of whom can do a lot of damage, but it also means they're in range of her because she wants to cast Blight. Blight is a powerful spell. It targets one person, it does 8d8 damage, and she targets the Count of Rend. Nicodemus fails his save and takes 8d8 damage and would have gone down. And I think that would have been the first time he ever went down, but, and this is one of the reasons he's incredibly hard to kill, he has the half-orc ability of deciding that he doesn't have to die if he doesn't want to. Once per day, anything that would drop him below 0 hit points, he can just decide leaves him with 1 hit point. And he spent the rest of the battle with 1 hit point. So you can already tell that the presence of this shaman, the troll mutants with their giant great clubs, the regular trolls in the background hurling javelins and peppering the heroes, you know, they're throwing, I think, 3 javelins. There's 3 of them, each throwing 3 javelins around. Each javelin does 2d6. They're attacking the frontline guys who have really high armor classes. But you know what? When there's that many ranged guys getting that many attacks, they're hitting once or twice around. And they're doing 2d6 damage, so they're constantly wearing the heroes down. This battle is a lot more interesting than the just big buckets of trolls were last time. And it was easy to do. It didn't take a lot of time to prep. Because I didn't spend a lot of time worrying about exactly what kind of spellcaster the Troll Shaman was, I picked 4 spells and called it good. Graves, and Phil knows something's going on, he says she's going to do something, I don't know what. Graves casts the Hunger of Hadar, and the Troll Shaman casts Counterspell. The Hunger of Hadar is a 3rd level spell, which means it is instantly countered. There's no roll necessary. When casting Counterspell, you only have to roll to see if you can counter the spell if the spell is of 4th level or higher. Phil is really angry, but he knew something like this was coming. Sir Lanavar is in the back of the troll party being grappled by a scorpion, being attacked by all the regular trolls. Nicodemus has 1 hit point. Things are looking bad for the party at this point. While the other players were going, Phil turned to me and said, Matt, what was that rule you had, that house rule you had, that allowed me to petition my god? Graves is a warlock and he follows Bolothomogg. Phil had been kind of frustrated playing Graves at lower levels because it always seemed like the warlock didn't have enough spells. Other spellcasters were able to cast spells for the entire battle, but he would run out and just have to cast Eldritch Bolt, which isn't that great. I know it's a great cantrip, right? Compared to other cantrips, it's fantastic, but compared to other real spells, not that good. And I agreed. Looking at the design of the Warlock, I was like, man, I don't want you to be that encouraged to have to take a short rest after every battle. So I explained I have these rules, these optional rules that I turn on and off sometimes in my campaign called concordance. I come from a tradition where anyone, when I was playing in my friend Brad's campaign, any character could petition their god for help, right? There was a space on your character sheet that said your deity, and it didn't matter. You didn't have to be a cleric. You could be anybody. You could be a wizard. You could be a fighter. And the idea was the gods are real things in this world. And it made sense that normal people who believed in these gods would, in times of crisis, call out to their gods, and their gods had a chance of helping. So months ago, I had shared Phil on my concordance rules, and I said, here, you can use these. Concordance basically just means in agreement with, and it's something that I track private. It's a number that I track privately, and it basically means how happy is your god with you. In Graves' case, Bolothomogg is very happy with him. So on Phil's turn, he calls out, Bolothomogg, aid me, and he makes a charisma check. And I explained to him, I said, listen, if you fail this check, something bad happens to you because the gods don't like to be bothered. Each time you succeed at this, you get some boon, but also the DC rises. So eventually you will fail. Graves calls out, Bolothomogg, aid me, and Bolothomogg awards him with an extra spell slot. That was pretty cool, and the players liked it, but I'm actually now looking back, I'm not sure Graves needed to use that spell. He was getting all set up to cast Hunger of Hadar again, but I don't think he actually did. Because right after Graves petitioned his god for aid, it was Nicodemus's turn, and Nicodemus attacked the Troll Shaman and killed her. He chops her head off with wound. At that point, the trolls are shocked. Their shaman just died. And on the trolls' turn, they start speaking in Giant to the heroes. They start trying to negotiate. Because they have Sir Lanavar. Sir Lanavar is being beaten down behind enemy lines. Now, Gertz isn't bothered by this because his armor class is pretty high, he has a lot of hit points, and these 3 regular trolls that are surrounding him are having a hard time hitting him. But the only way he's surviving right now is because the 2 mutant trolls, the ones who they hit better and they do a lot more damage, are not paying attention to him. They're going after the frontline fighters. The trolls call out and say that if the heroes withdraw, they will release Sir Lanavar. The only person who can understand him is Keck, and Keck is a dwarf. He is a lawful character. He's an incredibly lawful character. He's not a paladin, but all dwarves will keep their oaths if at all possible. Nicodemus has 1 hit point, Graves has 1 spell, many of the characters are badly wounded, and they've only killed 1 troll. Admittedly, it's the shaman, but there's still 5 more trolls left, including the 2 mutant trolls who are doing a lot of damage on their turn. So the players accept the trolls' terms. Later on, the next day, Phil told me he thought that I was quite overtly trying to keep the players alive and try to avoid a total party kill, which gives you some idea the state that he thought the players were in. But that hadn't even occurred to me. Hadn't even occurred to me even a tiny little bit. Because remember, the players had the opportunity at the very beginning of the night to withdraw and go back and heal up. And they decided not to do that. They decided to stop, heal up, just take a round or 2, and then go back and find the trolls. And when my players have the opportunity to rest and heal up and get their spells back, and they don't, they decide to keep fighting, well then, as far as I'm concerned, all bets are off. If the total party kill's on the table, so be it. But that really wasn't my thinking. My thinking was the Troll Shaman had died, the trolls were freaked out, and they had Sir Lanavar. They had, and there was nothing the heroes could do about it. So why not bargain? These trolls are one of 2 tribes of trolls that are constantly warring, so they're used to bargaining. In fact, I was kind of surprised, given that this entire thing began with the heroes overhearing the 2 different tribes of trolls arguing about who had to deal with the humans that were intruding. I was surprised the players never thought to pit one group of trolls against the other. Probably each of them individually thought about doing something like that and then dismissed it because they thought, well, we've got to kill all these trolls anyway. The heroes accept the trolls' offer. The trolls stand down. The heroes stand down. They allow Sir Lanavar to go back to the heroes. And there was a point when Sir Lanavar on his turn had successfully returned to the heroes that the players thought, well, we've got what we wanted. Why don't we just attack these trolls? And TJ as Keck convinced them not to. He said, look, I gave my word. It's funny because I think of all the players, TJ is the one who is the most happy and the most satisfied just dungeon crawling, just killing bad guys to get experience and loot. But when it comes time to roleplay his character, he knocks it out of the park every time. He really understands and enjoys playing a short Klingon. The party keeps their word. They have Sir Lanavar. They retreat. They go find a place to hole up and rest. And I wasn't sure what they were going to do. They have the tuning fork and they found a natural outcrop of gems. I had to make a survival check, a tracking check to do that. And they had the opportunity to go all the way back to Zanzarite and take a long rest. But they decided, I think largely talked into it by Nicodemus, by EJ, they decided, no, let's just stay here. Let's spend the night in this one little cave we found. They had to make a couple of random encounter checks, which they did fine. And then let's go finish off those trolls. There was some debate about whether or not this was strictly according to Hoyle, whether or not they were violating their bargain, but it was Keck, it was TJ who said, no, we didn't say we would never attack you again. They said withdraw and we'll return Sir Lanavar to you, and we've done that. And in fact, I agreed with TJ. The trolls never tried. The trolls didn't think that far ahead. They didn't try to broker a lasting peace with the heroes. They were literally just saying, get out of here for now, leave us alone for a little while, and we'll let you have your human back. The heroes go back into the cave with the trolls and discover the trolls are gone. Now, there are many troll passageways down here, including a whole other half of this troll ward with a whole other tribe of trolls. But the players did seem kind of surprised and mystified as to where the trolls might have gone. There's the pool in the back of this cave, which the players explore. They're looking for treasure. EJ picks up his Nicodemus mini and puts it near the water and goes, I'm gonna check out the water. He checked it out all right. He found the allbino. This is the creature that has infected the trolls and turned them into rot trolls. This is the creature that Cordon was talking about, the gnome gem finder, when he said that there was something down here, it was like a rot elemental. And it was cool because I think a couple of players like Phil and TJ knew what an allbino was, but it had been so long that they didn't make the connection. They weren't able to kind of translate what Cordon might mean. I think the battle with the allbino was a little anticlimactic because I had built it up to be this big thing, but they once again, they put their heavily armed characters in front, and the allbino wasn't really able to do much. I sensed this was going to happen as soon as the battle with the allbino started, so I gave it this area effect stench that would have, if the players had failed a saving throw, given them disadvantage, but they made their saving throws. So again, that's how I run my bad guys. I'm dynamically adjusting them and giving them abilities or reducing their hit points to make it so that there's an idea. I have it in my head, how strong is this allbino? And it turned out that he wasn't that strong, so I was like, well, let's bump him up a little bit. Let's give him this area effect nausea ability. Now, when the players saved against it fair and square, I backed off. I said, okay, that's it. I'm not going to continue to buff the allbino until eventually he does something epic. I gave him a special ability and it didn't work based on the dice, and that's fine. This is all the kind of stuff that I do dynamically as I run the game, and there's not really any way for me to, there's no formula I can give you that will make it so that you can do what I'm doing if you're a new DM. It's just something you get the feel of over time. Like the Troll Shaman, where I ran spellcasters by the book for several levels and got bored of it and said, this is a lot of work for not a lot of bang for buck. The more I run monsters in 5th edition, the more I'm able to kind of wing it, right? Like I grab the Great Club from a Cyclops and I give it to the trolls, but I'm like, 3d8 is kind of crazy. Let's make it 3d6. And at the end of the evening, I felt incredibly vindicated. I wanted the battle with the trolls to be a lot of fun, and it was. The players thought it was super dramatic, and they all emailed each other and me afterwards and said that was super cool. Now they have the problem of how to get the treasure. They start trawling this after they've killed the allbino. They start trawling this pool because they suspect there might be something in there. And the first thing they do is with a grappling hook, they catch this chest. They open the chest up and there is a lot of treasure in here. There's lots of copper pieces and silver pieces and gold pieces and electrum pieces. They're like, what's electrum? And platinum pieces. This was just the buy the book treasure for Night Below. And Night Below is a 1994-1996 adventure for 2nd edition Dungeons and Dragons. And the treasure in 2nd edition is way more than the treasure in 5th edition. But I've never really minded giving the players lots of cash. Giving the players lots of cash just starts them thinking about what they want to spend their money on. And I love that stuff. I think it's great. Hey, let's build a castle. Absolutely. So now the players have a lot of money, but I mentioned that there were no magic items in there, and they're like, the magic items are probably in the pool. The players, of course, assume that this is a pool of water, but it is not a pool of water. This is where the trolls do their business. So it's mostly poo and urine. There is a little water in there. And as I describe it using some flowery language, the players are like, no, we are not. Is there something else we could do? And they start looking at their spells. Can we purify this? Well, we can purify a little tiny bit of it. At one point, Gertz playing Sir Lanavar goes, man, if it comes down to it, I am immune to disease. I will just wade in there. And the other players kind of say, oh, so are you willing to actually, yeah, you're immune to disease, but are you immune to being grossed out? And they start describing, I didn't have to do it. The other players start describing to Gertz what it would actually be like for Sir Lanavar to wade into a troll privy. And it was pretty compelling. I told the players, look, we don't have to solve this problem right now. It was already 11:30 at night. I was ready to stop. And so as we're getting ready to leave, we're all going out to our cars. We're standing in the parking lot. Lars says, listen, I'm going to cast plant growth because it summons these twisting vines that grow up. And it's in a huge area. That was the problem with stuff like purify food and water, and they had destroy water, they had a bunch of stuff, but it was nowhere near a big enough area to affect this pool that plant growth is. And so I said, well, Lars, what do you expect to happen when you cast plant growth? And he says, well, I expect the entire area of the pool to have these writhing, twisting vines coming up, and whatever's on the bottom of the pool will be lifted up by the vines. And I went, that works. And I described there's a magic bow, there's a magic dagger. I said there's some magic armor in here. They know it's magic because they have humans, and in my universe, because humans are natural and magic is not, much like undead, humans can naturally sense the presence of magic and undead. There are reasons for this we don't need to get into. And that was the end of the night. I had a lot of fun running the trolls. The players had a lot of fun fighting them. It was a really knockdown, drag out fight. But I will tell you that those of you watching this video will probably think, well, yeah, you made it You made it interesting by just making it tougher. Well, that's true to a great extent. I relied more on spells, and those spells were nasty, but that's sort of what spells are for. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The bad guys were more interesting. There were more different kinds of bad guys. When the Troll Shaman died, for instance, the Troll Mutants, who were her 2 bodyguards, they were the ones who made the offer to have a treaty and to have a little bit of a truce. But the regular trolls didn't like that idea. They were right next to Sir Lanavar, and they wanted to attack him, and there was a lot of bickering back and forth. And in fact, when the players said, okay, we lower our weapons, and the 2 mutant trolls lower their weapons, the 3 trolls surrounding Sir Lanavar, the regular trolls, did not lower their weapons, and there was a lot of barking and fighting. And when it was Sir Lanavar's turn, and he had to walk past these guys, I had each troll make a wisdom save. And I could tell that if one of the trolls failed its wisdom save and attacked Sir Lanavar, that would still not necessarily be the end of the truce. I love this stuff. I love this subtle gray area in diplomacy, because the players could tell that there was this pecking order, that these were the trolls in charge. Now that the shaman was dead, these were the trolls in charge, and these were the trolls who were supposed to take orders, but they didn't want to now because the shaman was dead. So if one of them had attacked Sir Lanavar, there was still probably the opportunity to recover the situation and not have it turn into all-out war again. Because remember, Nicodemus still has 1 hit point at this point. Having done that with the trolls, having introduced the idea of this pecking order, right, which wasn't there when the shaman was alive, I, in retrospect, thought that would have been a lot more fun, actually, to introduce a little bit of like Blood Bowl, if you're familiar with that game, into it, and make it so one of the cool things about these trolls is that they have crazy special abilities. In other words, ramp up the trolls even more, give them even more interesting special things to do on their turn, but make it so they have to make wisdom checks to do it because there's so much factionalism and they're not unified and they're kind of dumb. That would have made the trolls fun to run in a different way, not just tougher, but also giving them more personality and give the fight more dynamism. So that was it. They fought a bunch of trolls. They killed the Troll Shaman, but they didn't kill the other ones. They killed the Autoyug, but they couldn't find the other trolls. Where did the other trolls go? Well, there are lots more passages in these warrens. We'll find out next week. I don't know what the next video is going to be. It might be a campaign diary. I've been doing a lot of campaign diaries lately because I'm trying to keep caught up with them. And so if I only have a limited amount of time on my weekend, I'll try to get the campaign diary done because I don't want to get behind on those. But I really do want to make another running the game video. I want to do it this weekend. And I was going to do a video. It didn't matter what I was going to do. We started the Idea Informer. There's a link in the doobly-doo if you want to come suggest ideas for videos. And by far, the #1 most upvoted idea you folks would like to see is a video on how to make NPCs memorable. So I've kind of thrown out my idea for what the next running the game video is going to be in lieu of doing one on NPCs. So if there is a new running the game video this week, it's going to be the NPC video. Otherwise, you're going to get another campaign diary because we're going to play D&D Tuesday night, which is 3 days from now. So if you're not a fan of the campaign diaries, I apologize. We will get back to running the game. As always, there are no ads in front of these videos. I have no Patreon. If you want to help support the channel, I encourage you to come by my Amazon page. There's a link in the doobly-doo. You can help by buying my fantasy novels. I'm an independent fantasy author. I've written 2 books. I'm working on the 3rd. The books are pretty cheap and they're actually quite well reviewed. Go check out the Amazon reviews. A lot of the reviews mention that they are fans of the YouTube channel and bought the books just to support it, but eventually read the books and were surprised. I think they were surprised because based on the way I advertise my books, the fact that we're sitting here talking about D&D, they sort of expect the books to be high adventure, when in fact they're all about ethics and morality and philosophy and nobody ends up happy. If that sounds like your cup of tea, give my books a shot. Next video, either NPCs or the next campaign diary. Until then, peace out.